Hello everybody and welcome to the first pregame show of the 2024 football season here on the Indian Nation station. I'm your host AJ Ganger. Brian Gillespie couldn't be here this week, but will be back for our next home game in 2 weeks as the Indians will host Greenville here on the Indian Nation station. Let's take a look real quick at the remaining schedule for our Piqua Indians for the 24 season. Tonight they'll play Stebbins. Next week they travel to Tip City, and then it's 3 straight home games on September 20th. It's Greenville, the 27th, the big rivalry matchup against Troy, and October 4th, West Carrollton. Then we go on the road on October the 11th against Xenia. We finish out our home season on the 18th of October against rival Sydney and close out the year at Fairborn. This will be a little bit shorter of a pregame show as normal, as Brian's not here. We have a little bit less information than what we normally do, so just bear with us. It'll be back to full swing next time. Don't forget that all of our games are tape delayed. It doesn't matter the sport, football, volleyball, basketball, wrestling, anything. They're all tape delayed on the Indian Nation station and on our YouTube page. We are only covering home football games this season and any playoff games that we are able to attend. So just keep that in mind. Home games, we'll have games on YouTube and the Indian Nation station after the fact. Let's go ahead and look at some of the scores from around the Miami Valley League from week number 2. It was 3 shutouts and a shootout, and then a defensive battle in the MVL. So let's take a look here. Tip City with a 41-0 winner over Fairborn. Xenia 66, West Carrollton 0, Troy 49, Greenville 0, and then the shootout, Sydney 67, Stebbins 55, and then Butler 17, Piqua 7. That was your defensive struggle. As now we're going to bounce into the stats from the Piqua versus Butler game. Caden Thomas was 9 of 22 passing, 122 yards. He had 1 touchdown, but did throw 3 picks, and he also had 10 yards rushing. Jericho Burns led the way rushing for the Indians, 16 carries for 56 yards. Rayshawn Garrett had 3 catches, 49 yards and a tackle, and Zayden Allen and Owen Schaller both led the Indians with 8 tackles. The Indians actually outgained Vandalia Butler 224 to 172, but where they were hurt was third down efficiencies. The Indians 0 for 9 on third down, also had 5 penalties of 50 yards. They were 2 of 3 on fourth down, but 3 interceptions doesn't help you out very much in that department. They only had 102 rushing yards too as well on 27 carries. It was just a struggle all around for our Indians on offense, but our defense could only do so much while being on the field for so long. The Indians are looking to bounce back this week, but before we talk about this week's home opener against the Stebbins Indians, let's take a look at our MVL games from around the MVL here in week number 3. We have West Carrollton hosting Fairborn. Greenville plays Tip. Butler plays Troy. That should be a good game in the MVL, so that'll probably be your MVL game of the week there. Xenia taking on Sydney, and of course our game here, Piqua versus Stebbins. Let's go ahead and move on to tonight's game as Stebbins comes into town for the home opener for the Piqua Indians. It's been a struggle offensively for Piqua so far this season, while Stebbins' defensive has struggled, giving up 35 and 67 in their first 2 weeks of the season. Normally, this is where we would go to Brian for his thoughts, but because he is not here this week, I will share some of my thoughts on this game. I think Pickwa can win this game if they do some simple things. Keep playing some very good defense. Your defense has been doing great. Your offense has to sustain drives and stay on the field. Also, you have to score points. Pickwa's only scored 27 points in 2 weeks, 20 against Lima Senior and 7 last week against Vandalia Butler. The good news is the offense did outgain Vandalia, so we are looking forward to a better offensive showing this week for the Indians against Stebbins. Again, this was a shorter version of our pregame show. We'll be back with our regular long-form coverage of our pregame show in 2 weeks as the Indians play host to the Greenville Green Wave. Again, another reminder, all games for no matter the sport are tape delayed on the Indian Nation station and on our YouTube channel. Our football coverage this season is only of home games and the playoff games that we are able to attend. Well, this will conclude this week's episode of the pregame show. We'll see you in 2 weeks as the Indians will play host to the Greenville Green Wave for the next edition of the pregame show. Stay tuned for the game coming up next right here on the Indian Nation station with Brian Gillespie and Don Michaels on the call. Again, I'm AJ Ganger saying go Pickwa and beat Stebbins.